All right, what's up everyone? So just wanted to give a brief update on where we're at with the 57 Chevy. And if you hang around a little bit later into this video, we'll kind of have a little bit of the process of what we've done so far, just a little bit. But basically, here's where we're at right now. So we got the front end completely off. We got the inner fenders out. We got the fenders that were on it were kind of just sitting on it when we did our last video to clean it up. But we got those off. We got the inner fenders out. We started taking like the bumper and stuff off to get a lot of these bolts out of the way, because we don't want all this when we're obviously working on putting the engine and all that stuff in. A lot of the bolt, even on this side, we got some of the bolts started, but obviously they're rusted. So a lot of the bolts up front are soaking. So we have that. Then we have the fender on the other side and the inner fender off. We have the rad support and all that stuff out of the way. So basically the whole front end is open right now. We also came in and we drilled out the rivets so we could put in the LS motor mounts. So here are the LS motor mounts that we got. This one, we just need to put the other two bolts in. Basically getting this one is still kind of in the mock stage, but the rivets are drilled out on this side and on this side. That's how these mount. And on this side, this one obviously is a little further along on the mounting process. So there's the mounts. They're mocked in. That's basically where they're going to be. We started working on getting the transmission bar that was in here before. So that's almost out. But yeah, so that's where we're at on the front. Doesn't look like much, but definitely, you know, I have to understand all the bolts that we took out for the inner fenders. And I should say my dad did most of that work. They were completely rusty bolts, but we let some PB Blaster soak on them for several days and everything, and by surprise, they all actually came out. So I also wanted to go over some additional parts that we got since the last video. Obviously, I showed you the mounts. We also got the transmission crossbar. And this one will work for the T56, which is what we plan on using. We also got, in this tube is all of the window trim seals and everything like that. Not like the actual metal. We have that. We don't need that. But the seals, the window track, like where the windows go in, you know, so basically the material that goes into the tracks. And that stuff is, you know, it's necessary to have, and we wanted to make sure we have the you know, newest seals on there, because what we also bought already is all new glass for the car. So I'm not going to show all of the glass because I don't want to open it and accidentally break anything, but I wanted to give you a little hint of what we got so far. And these are just small pieces. This is just the side mirror or the side glass. But yep, all new. It's kind of hard to, I don't know if can't really get it to show. It's really hard to see. But basically, it kind of shows. It is the original green tinted glass. And we got that for the entire car. Other than the front windshield, which it's kind of hard to tell, and it's kind of dirty, but it is also green tinted. So we didn't get a new windshield in the kit that we got, but we got the winglet, we got the passenger window, front and back, we got the back window, and we got obviously on the other side. So basically this didn't come with the back window and the front window. So all the new glass is going to be green tinted. So yeah, that's some of the new parts that we got. We are still looking at getting the LS engine and transmission, so we can put in here. But we're just kind of weighing options, you know, which we found quite a few here locally that we could get. But you know, we're just kind of weighing our options right now, which one we actually want to go with. We also, so here's all the stuff that we got tore off. Here's some of the fenders, blower motor, obviously the fenders, the front grille, front pan, you know, rad support, all that, other inner fender and that. So what we're going to do now, while we kind of weigh the options with getting the engine and training and everything, on the fenders, we're going to start stripping down the paint. We have a sandblaster that we're going to start tackling these bottom corners, and possibly the panels. We definitely want to get the inner fenders sprayed down as well with the sandblaster, just to kind of get all some of the pitting and stuff that's in there, and get them nice and smooth, so we can paint them and make seal them and everything, make sure they're keeping the weather out. And the same is down here. So the next step is going to be getting some of the trim off the fenders, getting them sandblasted, getting some sealer on there, so we prevent more rust from showing up, and where we need to, obviously cutting metal out and welding in new metal, and getting that all patched up. So we want to get that kind of all cleared away. What else were we thinking? Obviously we've got to get the front bumper off yet, and those will be in another video. So yeah, that's where we're at now. Stay tuned, watch a little bit further into the video. We'll go show you basically my dad taking off the inner fender, kind of how that process was. But yeah, that's where we're at. Stick around, watch that, and stay tuned for the next episode to see more of the work in progress on the 57 Chevy. All right, so we're just getting some things set up. Basically, me and Dad were kind of looking over everything, just kind of making a plan of action of how we were going to take this front apart. We were talking about getting the inner fenders, getting the basically where the grill sits down in, and then kind of how to get I should say where the mounts are going to be and how we're going to get the rivets and everything out. So once we got that plan of attack, I kind of got out of there, and Dad took over to start doing all that work. So the first thing he did was he actually got the passenger side inner fender off. So that's not on video. But then he started working on the driver's side inner fender. And like I mentioned, all these bolts were sprayed down with PB Blaster overnight. And they actually, you can see, he used the drill to get them off, and sprayed a little bit of PB Blaster on his way through everything as well. But surprisingly, all the bolts came out nice and easy. Then he started taking out the rad support, and getting all the wiring, all that stuff loosened from that. And once he had some of that stuff out of the way, he was just looking to see where all he needed to unbolt to make sure that he could get it off as kind of like one piece. He knew he couldn't take the rad support off and the actual front bumper on his own. So he's just trying to figure out where you could disconnect the two, make them two separate pieces, without making too much extra work for himself. And he was able to find a couple bolts on the bottom that held the bottom plate of the rad support in, and got those off. And then once he had that, then he went ahead and removed all of that. And then he started looking at, a couple other little small things that he could get off. Not necessarily what we were actually, discussing earlier, but just things that looked like they were easy to get off, just to get him out of the way. Um, and things that I should say will probably end up being replaced in a later video. But so he went ahead and got some of those smaller parts and pieces off. And once he was finished doing that, he went ahead and started looking over where the mounts went. Did a little looking on like the instructions that the mounts came with, and exactly to figure out exactly where he needed to remove things to make sure the mounts fit. So got an angle grinder, started grinding off the basically there's two rivets on the inside on both sides of the frame that need to come out. So I used an angle grinder to get that off. Used a couple different grits to trying to get it down to perfect, and then finally got it to a cutting disc to get that final little piece off, because they weren't quite just grinding off, so he had to actually cut them off. And that actually took a little while to basically get them cut off. They're not in a very ideal. I mean, they're kind of open, but it's not in a very ideal place to kind of be cut and stuff. It's kind of angled on the frame, so it is a little tricky, because ideally you don't want to cut into the frame. You're just trying to focus on those rivets. If they didn't stick up so high, I would say you could drill them out. But just because of how they're shaped, it's not very easy to drill them out. So once you got that side cut off, he came back in with the drill just to clean up those holes, because ultimately we're going to be running bolts through there. So once he did that, he got the mount that belongs on each side and kind of like mocked them up to, well, one, to make sure that the bolt holes are going to line up to where the rivets were, just so he could kind of see where they would be placed and get an idea of where he would have to drill the other two holes for the mounts. So once he had that marked off, well, I should say, tighten up those first two bolts so you can have a more accurate idea of where he could mount those the two back bolts on the bracket. So once he got all that, he was able to get it all tightened down, and then he was able to mark where those holes need to be. And after that, he jacked up the car so he could get a little bit more leverage when he wanted to drill out the holes in the back. Just gave a little bit more room to do it from the bottom. And then he was able to run the other two bolts in and get that mount exactly where, or I should say, he got it bolted on so it's exactly where it needs to be. Now the other side wasn't shown, but here's both of those mounted in there. Thanks everyone for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and tap that bell so you can stay notified when we release new content on this build. Thanks everyone.